In many a distant village, there exists the legend of the werewolf, or Wolfman. A legend of a strange mortal man with the hair and fangs of an unearthly beast. His hideous howl, a dirge of death. Welcome back to Entertainment Rebooted. Specifically, welcome back to Entertainment Cinema Revisited, the Universal Monster series. We are continuing our series tonight with the film 1941's The Wolfman. As always, I am joined by my esteemed co-host, DJ. Well, DJ, let us talk about 1941's The Wolfman, the second film that Universal made, featuring one of my personal favorite monsters, werewolves. So, before we get into the good, the bad, the ugly, and the iconic of 1941's The Wolfman, we should probably go over the plot for those who have not seen this film, considering it is well over 70 years old at this point. What do you think, DJ?
I think that's a good idea. Okay, so this one's actually really simple, unlike the last one. The plot of The Wolfman is the werewolf story. There is a man who comes back to his family estate after his brother dies, who was there in the estate, and he comes home in order to take over the estate. Meets a girl that he likes. They go with a friend out to the gypsies to get their fortune told, and he attacks a wolf. It gets bit, and he now is cursed himself with the werewolf's curse. And the film is all about the psychological torment and issues he's dealing with, trying to first deny and then eventually accept that what he is. And then he slowly starts to attack and to kill.
And then the town comes after him.
And then the town comes after him. And it concludes with his own father beating him to death with the very cane that he beat the original werewolf to death that made him who he was. So it's a very round story that starts and ends very similarly, and it makes a circle. A lot of the people around him treat him kind of babyish almost, and don't take him seriously at all. And so it's a very interesting, just psychological dynamic while being a horror film. So that's pretty much the whole plot of the film.
That really is. I mean, it is a very straightforward plot.
It's quick, it's fast paced, and so it doesn't do a lot of side stuff. It just gets right to the point and takes care of it.
Speaking of getting right to the point, let's get right into the good, the bad, the ugly, and the iconic. Starting with the good. DJ, take it away.
So, this film, I think the good for me over everything else is it's not Werewolf of London. It took the ideas of the werewolf and the lore and stuff and cleans it up a lot. It's the Werewolf of London had all this like boring like exposition stuff going on and everything. Mm-hmm. This just streamlined that considerably. Like it seems kind of almost cop-outish to have the good be. It does what another one didn't, but since this is so tied to that film, it makes sense. It's clean, fast-paced. I felt I was in the movie, and man, when it gets towards the end, I was pulled hard. It's the relationships and things are more believable. There's more dynamic in the characters. It doesn't feel like everybody's just there to collect a paycheck.
That's fair,
Just
yeah.
kind of what Werewolf of London felt like at times. And Werewolf of London had like the mad scientist Frankenstein vibes, whereas this would be like the second Invisible Man, where the first Invisible Man was like the doctor experiment himself, made him into what he was.
Right.
Similar to Werewolf of London did that. This one, it's an unsuspecting victim who becomes hit he wasn't looking for it. He got hit with it anyway.
Yeah.
Those two feels is like you're getting your just desserts, whereas the second Invisible Man, much like this one, is you are a product of somebody else's like decision making. Like you did not choose this for yourself. You were thrust into it.
That's fair. This really is kind of other than Werewolf of London, obviously, very similar premise as regards to the creation of the monster in the film. It is like the only Universal monster films where the monster is a product of other people's decisions, not their own. It's not a curse put upon them. It's not some condition that they kind of already have in some mysterious way. Like Dracula doesn't go into how he became a vampire. It's just he is a vampire, and he's been a vampire for centuries, tormenting this village. And then Frankenstein's monster, obviously, not choosing to be created, but a product of Frankenstein's experimentation and such. Wolfman really is a interesting character because he's not 100% monster all the time.
Yeah.
And it's not a choice of his to become this monster full time, like in The Invisible Man. So,
right.
Yeah. For me, I'd have to say the good is the set design on this film is very, very well put together. Lots of little intricate details and stuff like that. The other thing is that the way that they designed the sets, it doesn't feel like a set. It feels like a space that somebody could definitely live in. And it doesn't feel like it's just kind of thrown together as a set. It does feel kind of like,
especially after some of those, like even the original Dracula, they had these grand scene set designs, but the castle felt empty.
Yeah.
Like there's that grand scene between Bela Lugosi as Dracula with the with Renfield.
Right.
And it's desk in like an empty room. Like none of these places feel lived in. Frankenstein's castle doesn't feel lived in. It feels dungeony and blank. His home, the Frankenstein Manor, where like feels empty and void. This is the first film I really feel like in this whole set where the places they were in felt like they were lived in.
Yes.
Not a set.
Yeah, exactly. And the other thing too is it's a good variety of locations and stuff like that. They did a really good job with all their effects as well. Just every shooting location is done very, very well. And it feels natural, it feels real.
I agree with that.
I would say that, set design overall I think is probably a really big good in this film. The other thing I would say is just casting. Like the cast was pretty well put together.
Yeah.
So kind of like a minor bonus good. I just figured that it's worth mentioning.
Fair enough.
All right, how about bad?
That was actually harder for this one. There were like a few nitpicky stuff, but I'm trying to think of something, even when I was watching it, like truly bad. The only thing I could really think of that was there is, despite my saying I like the pacing and stuff, I feel like the Wolfman doesn't get to be the Wolfman for very long. From the time that he fully kind of actually becomes the monster to the time he dies is really fast. There's not a lot of terrorizing of the town. It is more of a psychological horror than it is a monster horror. It's more about what he's dealing with this dynamic than the other people.
Yeah, it focuses a lot more on Larry as compared to the Wolfman's.
Yeah. And that's fine, but the problem with that is that his time as the monster is mostly with him spent fearing what he is rather than actually experiencing it or other people experiencing it. And so the Wolfman doesn't get a lot of like screen time really.
Yeah.
That hurt a little bit. I think it would have been nice to have him be there a little more as the wolf.
Yeah, I agree with that for sure. It does feel like we don't really get to see much of the Wolfman in the Wolfman.
Correct.
We see Larry Talbot way more than we see.
Correct.
Him as the Wolfman, even though he's credited as the Wolfman, not Larry. That is a really good bad. I would say I'd say the gypsy woman is a bit bad. She does a really good job in like the face-to-face scenes and stuff like that, where she's talking directly and doing some of the exposition and stuff like that. Her costume design is really well done, and she seems pretty well suited for the role. I'd say that the bad is really just she never goes beyond a monotone. She shows very limited range.
I was going to say, even besides the monotone nature of her voice, I was going to say her character is an example of so ominous it's forgettable. I don't mind those ominous, like, older characters. Like, they seem more knowledgeable about, like, ancient things that you can't comprehend because they've been around longer. And so there's that mystery about them. But the mystery is so heavy surrounding her that you don't get enough to remember her by.
Yeah.
It's like, what does she even really do here other than, like, exposition a little bit and then fade into the dark? Like, there's the one redeemable moment of her character is that she comes to help the Wolfman later, and so she becomes like part of the action again. It's almost like the seer character, the narrator, is like there doing things and then suddenly takes part in the thing and then steps out of it again. It's a little jarring sometimes with her, monotone, washed out. She doesn't feel like she's really in the film. She feels like she's just this set piece that occasionally shows up, and that's a little odd.
Sometimes she feels more like a plot device, exposition device than anything else. But then
she feels like a part of the set rather than an actual character in the film.
Yeah, at times, definitely. So
like an animatronic what makes me think of an animatronic of like a Disney ride. Yeah, like it's just repeating a line and just there. Well, and you it's like ominous. So you're like, well, that seems important, but then nothing really comes of it. And then the next thing you know, you're back in the plot.
Yeah. So yeah, I would say that she's probably a bad in this film. How about Ugly? What do you think for Ugly?
For that one, the one I think I could come up with the best is actually going to foil my iconic, and the Ugly is going to be, well, I bring a little tradition, kind of do both at the same time. The Ugly and the iconic for me is the Wolfman himself.
Okay.
His portrayal of him is really good. I really like the psychological, when he's Larry, he's got this psychological, like, intriguing character. But the Wolfman itself is just ugly. Like, it doesn't do anything. That was the one thing the Werewolf of London actually got done well. Mm-hmm. The werewolf was like this mix of man's intelligence and the wolf's instinct, and he was dangerous.
Yeah.
Clever. And this one, the wolf was dumb. The Wolfman's side was dumb. He was tripping over like things in the woods.
Flailing around.
Yeah. Stepped in a trap instantly and just like freaked out and rolled on the ground. Like he was just like he wasn't intelligent enough to be believable as a man, and he wasn't instinctual enough to be believed as a wolf. He was like a dumb animal that just dropped on his head on birth. He didn't do anything.
Well, he doesn't feel vicious either.
Yes,
that's the other thing.
He doesn't feel threatening. He doesn't feel vicious. He doesn't feel like a monster. Yeah. He feels like a dumb. It's like a dumb wolf creature. It looks more scared and confused than anything.
Yeah,
and it almost like comically sad. Mm-hmm. And relate, like, oh my gosh, that like pitiful. Oh my, that poor Wolfman. Like he's just sad and poor thing.
Oh no, he fell over.
Yes.
He was on his way to murder someone, but he fell.
Yes.
Yeah, I get that.
That's my Ugly. It's like the wolf part of the Wolfman is just sad. But then the iconic part for me was Larry's portrayal of the man that was becoming the wolf was amazingly well done. And it reminds me a lot of Karloff getting into the character, or Bela Lugosi like getting into the character of what they are.
Yeah.
That psychological torment of him being concerned about what he's about to walk into. It's a perfect foil. It's like the Larry side of acting, portrayal, written as a character, all of it is beautiful. And the wolf is just bad. And it's also inconsistent. Yeah. The wolf that he hits looks like an actual wolf. And then he's like the Wolfman. And I was like, was that psychological? There's a little inconsistency to that. Yeah. So that's my Ugly and my iconic together.
That's fair. I think Lon Chaney Jr. deserves praise.
Yes.
For his portrayal. He did an amazing job.
Well, and when he portrays the wolf, it's actually pretty cool at first because he's like a little bit like animalistic, but then it's almost like a slapstick comedy by the time he actually starts trying to do anything.
Yeah.
They just don't do anything with the wolf side of it. So what about you?
I would say the ugly is probably the romantic storyline.
Okay. It's a little creepy.
Well, it's very creepy. Like the way it starts is really, really creepy. It doesn't really do much. It doesn't really do much to like justify its creepiness. He literally sees this girl through a telescope, and then he becomes like obsessed with her.
Yeah.
So he literally goes and he hunts her down. Not like hunts her down, but you know
He does. He literally hunts her down as the human, and then at the end of the film hunts her as the wolf. It's like an odd dichotomy, but it's like it doesn't work as well when it's like creepy in the beginning. Like it's supposed to be endearing, but it comes across a little creepy, even for the time. Like we've seen other movies like do this better. Where like, hey, I'm sorry, I just happened to see you up there and you were beautiful. I just wanted to say hi and introduce myself. But he comes across as, hey.
I saw you line, with a telescope.
When he's like, hey, where are those earrings I saw on your dresser? And it's like, dude.
Like
creepy.
Like the thing is, he does all the.
I was just peering at a telescope and I happened to see your bedroom. I apologize, but I saw you were beautiful and I just wanted to come say hi and apologize to you. I didn't want you to think anything of it. You know, maybe a little weird, but a little less creepy. But he comes across and literally just makes it weirder every time he talks.
Well, the thing is, like, his dialogue is like 50% creepy and 50% incredibly charming. You know, like even I'm just like he says a line and I'm like. That's actually really charming. Like I can see it. Like, that's a good line delivery.
But then right afterwards,
he says something really off-putting, and you're just like, "Yeah, you did totally spire out."
Would you like to come to my place and read books? Oh, and then see my collection of shrunken heads? What? What?
Huh?
That's kind of
literally,
he'll kind of vibes he gives off.
Well, like he literally will be like, "Oh, like this, these earrings that are on your nightstand that I saw," and then she's like, "Huh?" He's like, "Well, I'm just saying that those earrings are just absolutely gorgeous on you. Like they just enhance your beauty even more. I don't know how. Like it impossibly enhances your beauty."
She only finds it. It is when he finally tells her it was through the telescope. She's like, "Oh, that's creepy. Don't do that." It's like, now you're concerned.
So yeah, it's like the dialogue is like 50%. Creepy, 50% very, very charming. But the other thing is that it's one of those things where as a character they try to in the beginning of the film kind of push this idea of even the gentlest of men, even the most pure of souls and hearts can be corrupted by this curse. But he's literally going after a betrothed woman. He does not care about Frank, her fiance, who he has met multiple times.
Yeah, he's not really. He's more of like a, he's kind of an imbecile. Like he's just clueless of like social norms or any kind of interactions.
Which makes no sense because he's supposed to be like from like royalty essentially. His family has been in charge of this town and are very affluent. Yeah. So it's clear that he's had this like.
Well, and he had training and education in America when he wasn't going to inherit his fortune. They sent him off to like learn and, you know, do other things. So he learned and he became an electrician, I believe is what he was.
Yeah. So he's an educated man and he's a well put together guy. He should understand social norms and social behaviors and manners as he's grown up in an affluent family.
But it doesn't make any sense. Like his demeanor and his everything just doesn't work.
Yeah. So,
but that's the thing. Like, this is a poorly written character, but he plays it really, really well. So, like, it's like in spite of the badness of the written of the character, he pushes it pretty strongly.
Well, no, like the actor does it really well,
which is impressive to fight against. And as it gets really interesting as it gets psychological, but his character at the beginning is really off-putting. What would you say is iconic then?
Well, I'm not finished with the ugly because
you still have more.
I have more. You keep interrupting me.
Yes, because you're just gonna rip this movie apart, you meanie.
But the other thing is that, like, as far as like the romantic interest and stuff like that, and the intrigue and stuff, not only is he like going after a woman who's already clearly with another guy, but halfway through the film, like 3/4 of the way through the film, she suddenly is like, "Oh, I'll go away with you. I'll leave my fiance, who I'm still with and actively have gone on a date with in the film. I'll still go and leave this man who I care about for you." It feels really abrupt. And the other thing is that it doesn't work as well as a romantic relationship in other Universal films.
Well,
like,
especially when that works okay if you give it a little bit more time, and then the person that they're having the relationship with actually survives. But it seems like a lot of lost purpose when you have her getting romantically interested with this guy, when she has someone who actually seems to be a decent dude to take care of her.
yeah.
Then you just kill him off right in front of her, and then she like has to confide in the person she was willing to leave for him. This makes it awkward, not endearing, awkward. Because like, dude, she blew you off the second this guy showed up, and now you're her like second choice because he's dead now.
Yeah.
Like, that's a little off-putting.
Yeah, it's just one of those things. It doesn't really work out very well. As far as iconic, what can I say is iconic? You already kind of hit on, like, you know, Lon Chaney and his portrayal of the Wolfman and Larry at the same time. Honestly, like that probably is the most iconic, like, enduring part of this film, is just his betrayal of the Wolfman, like the tortured soul behind the werewolf. He does a really good job with that. There's a lot of things in this film that are, you know, kind of iconic, but we've already kind of seen it before too. Universal is perfecting a lot of different things, so it's not the first time we're seeing it.
I have one for you that you might be able to expand upon. It comes off your good. The set design being more lively.
That's fair, yeah.
So I almost thought about like hitting that on iconic, but I was like, you kind of touched base on it. But honestly, despite that just being good, the iconicness on top of that is the way the actors and the people like exist in the scenes.
Yeah.
Because we talked about the scenes themselves being more lived in, but what about the characters? Did you notice they do things?
Well, yeah, they seem actively involved in the actual sets, and it seems like a dynamic moving set. It's not just like, here's the set piece, here's the stage.
It's feeling more modern. Where like earlier in films in these Universal series, they were plays essentially. It was all still sets with like set things that don't do anything. Dracula, the first one, we talk about the empty castle.
Yeah.
Another part of that was the Insane Asylum.
Yeah.
They're in there in the dark zones. All the shots are like really close up to like a desk. But whenever they show a wide shot, there's nothing in the room.
Yes.
There's like maybe a couple trinkets in the background, but rooms are empty. There's nothing in there. There's no decor. There's no furniture half the time in a lot of these rooms. It's very vacant and dead and empty. And then so the people have nothing to do. They're just standing there.
It feels like Universal is actually invested in the space and the set as compared to going with, well, what's the easiest to clean up? Because that's kind of the thing, is it's moving away from the stage mentality of it needs to be detailed enough that people know that we're in a different area, in a specific area, but it should not be so detailed as to become cumbersome to change between scenes.
Yeah.
Whereas now I think Universal is starting to realize, well, we're building the sets for the film. We might as well build the set like it's an actual space. Yeah. And it feels lived in, it feels real. Like the castle, the home that Larry lives in it feels very fleshed out. They only show 2-3 rooms, but it works really well.
There's bookcases in the background and extravagant drapes and desks with furnishings on them and little. There's like in one scene there's like a globe in the background and like some desks, and there's a chess set like sitting off to the side that has been played.
Yeah. There's
that little attention to the details, the kind of thing that makes a house feel more alive.
Yeah.
And then that was your good, but think of the iconic of this, of not just finally furnishing your sets, but having your characters utilize them. They many
feel
scenes
like they belong in the set.
Yeah, and there's scenes where he's what's the father?
We called him the
knight.
Invisible Man the entire time.
Yeah, I know.
Sir, what's
Sir Talbot or whatever.
Yes, Sir.
His last
Sir
name was a tall
John.
boy.
Sir John.
Yeah.
His name's Sir John.
There's scenes where he's like sitting behind the desk and he's like has notes and papers and he was like writing stuff and then he's like, oh hey, and then he sits back and then he gets up and stands on the desk and leans on it and they talk and move around the room. So many earlier ones that we watched, they all just stand there staring at each other and talking and nothing really happens. And this one, they're constantly shifting around the room, talking. The scene with the investigator, he sits down with the doctor, then he stands up and walks over to him, and then he's pacing the room a little bit.
That's true. It's a thing of like, it's not like move, deliver line, move, deliver line. It feels more dynamic. They're living and moving in the space more naturally.
Yes.
It feels more natural. It feels less like a set. It feels less like a play. It feels less like move to this point, deliver a line, move to this point.
That's exactly how it was. They had people sit down or stand up, but they would sit down, deliver an entire set of lines, then stand up, then walk to the other side of the room, then deliver a set of lines, and that would be the whole scene.
Or they would sit down and then they'd have a very, very long scene, and then they would change shots. So it felt like they were willing to take more of the risk of having to reshoot and redo a moving scene. So I guess that is kind of iconic. Like we're really seeing this film probably feels the most modern. Obviously, it is the most modern of the ones that we've seen, but it feels
feels like it's taking the most jumps, and it's And we've seen so many of these films now where we've seen them learn things and then backtrack and then try something else. And almost every one of the films would try something new, but not any combination of them. This is the first one that looks like it takes all the things that it's learned from everything else and expands upon it. Because they've had people be more dynamic. They've had set pieces get slightly more robust. But even a few films ago, like the third Frankenstein film, this Daughter of Dracula, had a lot of emptiness to some of the sets.
Yeah.
This one felt so alive. Even in the forest scene, the trees...
Well, the forest feels
like
dynamic.
A real forest with actual trees. The gypsies out with their tents and stuff.
The festival felt more alive even than, like, we've seen a festival in the first Frankenstein film, but it's all off to one side of the street so that the car with the camera can move by.
Yeah.
This one, they felt like it was more of an actual festival. There's actually people moving around, and they're actually utilizing
camera angles inside of it.
And they're using like cranes and different like areas and putting cameras in specific places to hide it within the set so we're not running into it.
No, yeah,
it's very intelligent set design, and it's made purposely to look real, to act real, but it's all clearly still within a set.
Yep. And it just looks so good compared to some of the earlier ones. It just looks more alive, more realistic, more believable.
Yeah,
it's a really fun just experience to like see them learn and grow from these things that they've implemented over time and perfect them and clean them up and just get a film that really feels more like a film and less like a play. Is where we're getting now, which is nice.
Speaking of refining and perfecting, how would you remake the Wolfman? If you were given control of the Wolfman story and you had to make a Wolfman movie?
Honestly, this one is pretty close to this is closer to what I was thinking of when we watched Werewolf of London. We tried to rewrite that one.
Yeah.
This is closer to what I wanted. Like a little better, quicker pacing, quicker to the wolf. The biggest two changes that I would make is I would make the Wolfman, I would give him more screen time. Mm-hmm. I would actually wait longer to showcase him, but then use him more once he shows up. I would have that psychological. They dug so deep into that, like nobody believed him. Like get to the point where you're like putting him in an asylum, like straight up, like have nobody believe him, and he's just losing his mind, and even the audience isn't even really sure if it's actually real or not. But then he goes full wolf and just starts going crazy. The star marked thing, that thing was an interesting twist, but I like the idea of him just going ham. Like he turns into the wolf and just like tears holes in walls, and just kills everybody in his way, and just goes nuts, and then gets away, and then there's a few more concerning scenes with the monster, and then they put him down. But I liked that I would leave the ending alone where the father's the one that has to kill him. Like, that was really deep. As for the romantic interest, I would have picked someone who wasn't either already wasn't taken, or the person that she was taken with wasn't very serious. Because it made that, because I like having someone to mourn him besides just the father, like someone who you have someone that's known him his whole life, and then someone who just got to know him, like mourning him, is a strong impact on the audience.
Yeah.
I would just have that relationship with her be a little more natural, fluid, and less creepy.
Yeah.
A little bit of creepiness can be endearing if it's ignorant, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he seems like he should know better, and it's just kind of dumb.
Yeah.
And just a better use of the Wolfman, make it more maniacal, more menacing, more concerning, like they've done some of the modern films. Like you have Van Helsing did this. They made the wolf a little more menacing and believable as a concern.
Mm-hmm.
Like, do that.
Yeah.
Less fumbly, like you can have it get caught in the trap, but he's smarter about it. Like, he's the intelligence of the man mixed with the instinctual destruction of the beast, the evilness, like a Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde thing, where he gets caught, but he takes the trap as the wolf and throws it, and he gets more clever and more sneaky as he goes. And that's the kind of thing I would do. The rest I'd mostly leave the same. Mm. I think it did really well. That would work for it, almost make it timeless. You could remake that at any time period. It would work well. What about you?
Okay, so a few things I would change up. I'd make Larry to be an extremely virtuous, pure soul.
Make the dynamic harsher.
Yeah. So he's actually like just a genuinely good guy. He's good-hearted. He's good-natured. Maybe even like innocent to a naivety extent. But he is literally just a good guy. Just show him being really kind and compassionate, and maybe while he was away from the family, like he decided to just be a force of good kind of thing. So he's been away and he's been digging wells in Africa or something. Like, he's doing good.
Right.
That's what he does, because he didn't have to inherit the estate. He's been left on to his own devices, and so he doesn't feel like he has to be around the village, but that doesn't mean that he's not like doing good.
Right.
So his whole thing is like he's a good guy, very good natured, very
make him a saint, basically.
Yeah, essentially make him a saint. And when he runs into the love interest, just make it a thing where she spends time with him and he just kind of wants to be her friend, where, you know, she's talking and maybe she's having a bit of like emotional turmoil because of her relationship or something.
Almost like he's too innocent.
Well, yeah, and he's just a nice guy. Like, he just listens and he talks to her and stuff like that. He's like, oh, you know, I'm really sorry that your fiance is doing all this. That sounds really bad, but I'm sure he's a good guy at heart. He's probably just stressed or something like that. And the jealousy doesn't fit. Like, the jealousy in this film makes sense because Larry's literally just hitting on this engaged woman. But in my film, I would make him he's just a good guy. He's not like going after her sexually. He's not going after her because he saw her through a window. He's just a caring guy. And so she starts kind of falling for him, and he's doing whatever. But I would make it more stark. So when he's attacked by the werewolf, he's literally doing it because it's right, but he's trying not to kill the animal because he's compassionate towards the animal. But then the animal bites him and ends up killing him.
Right.
He's really torn up. We really show this dynamic. We show this difference. And I would also ramp it up to where when the Wolfman really starts appearing, he would appear on screen more, but he would be doing more damage. He's ferocious. He's not like clever and sneaking around. I wouldn't go with that route. I would go with like, he's a vicious beast. He's literally willing to tear down windows. He's tearing through the village. When he gets caught in a trap, he literally rips the trap.
I was just saying clever.
Yeah, no.
Yeah. He knows, trap, rip off with strength. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like that mix of like cleverness and intelligence, but not like he's not like calculated. He's just
No.
I agree with you with that. That's how my monster would be. Like he's just not dumb.
No,
like,
I wouldn't make it like,
oh,
I'm caught in the trap, I fall on the ground. I would have it like, he gets caught in the trap, and then his immediate instinct is just, I got bit by something, I want to tear it to shreds.
Yes.
So he takes hold of it, and he just rips it, and it actually breaks the thing in half.
Yeah.
Because he's strong. He's a giant monster beast.
Yes.
I'd also emphasize the fact that the werewolfism in and of itself is a curse, and it causes you to go after the things that you love the most. And because he's such a good-hearted, natural guy...
That was specifically the one in Werewolf of London, wasn't it?
You went after your one true love.
Yeah, the werewolf always went after the thing that it loved the most. Thing, person, whatever it was, you always went after what you loved the most. That was the thing. In this one, that's less clear, but that's what happens.
Yeah. So in this one, I'd bring that back. I'd just be like, it's a curse. You kill the things that you love the most. But the thing that's terrifying about it is he's literally like the most kind-hearted, loving person. So he loves everyone. And so he is going after everyone and anyone.
That's actually a really good change of ideal there, where it's like, you know, what happens if someone who loves everyone becomes a monster that attacks what it loves?
Yeah.
It's like everyone is a target. You're like the nicest person in the world, so now you're the most what's the dichotomy? What's the opposite?
Yeah.
Well, now you're the most evil, hateful person, the thing that there is.
Yeah, so, and he's torn up about it, so like whenever he like wakes up in the morning and stuff like that, we see the anguish, we see like he wants to be there. The entire town, he feels like the entire town is staring at him. He feels like the entire town is like onto him.
That was actually something this film did really well, that you could add, that you could take and then run with.
Yeah, but I would make it more of a thing of like, it's more like in his head. The town's not just onto him. They're like, oh, he came into the village and this happened. And blah, blah, blah. It would literally be a thing of like, people are going to him because he is part of the estate. Maybe he kills his dad right away. Now he's in charge of the town. So the town's like going to him, and they constantly have their eyes on him, but more out of like, what are you, like, you are our leader. You're like the best guy in town. What are we going to do? And he's conflicted because he's like, well, I'm the monster. I can't cure myself, but I don't want to kill myself either. Like the survival instinct. So I would kind of have that dichotomy. I'd have more gore, I think, because it's a vicious monster. But I understand why they don't do it in these films. But I would have more scenes where it's like just showing the ferocity of the werewolfism, but more of the human element where the human is 100% tortured. He's not doing it because he's thinking it through.
Yeah. The other thing actually that did bother me about this film is it's the first. A lot of the monster films have like a happier ending, where the hero in the end actually gets by, and the monsters always end up getting vanquished, pretty much. The Invisible Man has always been the exception, because the Invisible Man isn't truly a monster. He's a
a product of his own hubris and insanity.
The first one gets killed and is thankful for it, but the latter two get cured or don't really have dangerous enough effects to be a concern.
Yeah.
I would have liked to see the Wolfman get redemption at the end, because in the last one he gets killed too, and it's like in this one I'm like, this guy. The problem is he was kind of a not that good of a person. He was just kind of a mess. So it's like whatever. But I actually felt bad for him in this one, because he seems so innocent and ignorant that it didn't seem fair that someone like that would get killed by a curse. You know what I mean? And to make him even more innocent, it would be just, that's the kind of thing where I'd like to give him, like, he overcomes it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not 100% sure on like what I would do with the ending, because I can see it be like, you know, it's tragic. I think that werewolves are interesting partly because they are a tragic monster. But at the same time,
I mean, it's a metaphor for giving into your evil nature.
Yeah.
Like, what it literally is. Just because you're a good person doesn't mean you can't do bad things, and they can take over. I mean, that's kind of the metaphor of it. So if you wanted to go hardcore into it, you could have that dichotomy where he does just face that, like, his evil gets him killed. Like, doesn't matter how good you are, these evil things will get you killed. Like that's what will destroy you. And it's like like a kind of a metaphor for damnation. Like, yeah, you did good things, you were a nice person, but look what you ended up doing at the end, and you didn't change, you didn't move from that, you let it take you over.
Yeah, and
The problem is the curse itself technically isn't beatable. Like, it's not, you can't just willpower it away. Like, it wins no matter what. So
right, and it's also a curse that he inherits from the original werewolf. So the original werewolf might not have been that great of a guy, but now he has it, and it's still a curse. It's still like he infects other people with it. But yeah, it's just one of those things. I don't know exactly how
it would be a
I would
tough
need more
one to
time.
end.
Huh?
It would be a tough one to end.
Yeah, like
do you end it the tragic way? The only reason I like the redemption for the werewolf is because it's the one thing that it's uncontrolled.
Yeah.
Like Frankenstein's monster was able to will himself out of being the monster at some points.
Yeah.
The Invisible Man was able to kind of pull some sanity out of things. But the werewolf seems completely out of control. There's nothing that can be done about it. Mm-hmm. And that seems unfair. Now, the way I do it is you have a friend cure them. Like he gets shot by a silver bullet, but it misses the heart. It turns out that like cures werewolfism if it doesn't kill them.
Yeah.
Where like it requires others to help pull you out of it or something.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's a tough one. I don't know how I would do it. This one I thought ended okay.
Yeah, this one ended okay. It's a little more tragic than the other Universal films, but it ends fairly well. So it's like I could see myself ending a film kind of like this, where it's like he's beaten to death by his own dad, kind of thing, where it's just like the one person who loves him the most ends up being the one that puts an end to him. And
no one believed him. Like,
no
if they had believed him, maybe they could have found a cure, but no one ever got a chance to try.
Well, yeah, and the dad was like completely like very adamant on the fact that it wasn't real. So I might go with that angle. I might be like, he doesn't kill his dad right away, but his dad doesn't believe him. He's just like, why would you believe in all these superstitions? It's just like kind of like a psychosis thing going on.
Right.
We'll find the monster and then you'll be fine. You're just having like these awful nightmares or something.
Yeah.
And then at the end, it's just like, well, actually, if I had listened to him and I had listened to his struggles, maybe we could have stopped it. That's another thing too. I could make it more like a metaphor of like listening to people when they're hurting, no matter how kind and fun and bubbly they are. When they're hurting. You should take care of them, kind of thing. Like, you go with that kind of metaphor. We could also go with more of the romantic thing where he's fallen in love with the woman, he's about to attack her, and then his good nature overpowers the monster side of him, and he stops himself just long enough for him to get, stopped. He could get cured. There could be a way to break the curse. Maybe he has to hunt down the person who turned him into a werewolf, and then if he stops the werewolf, or maybe he has to hunt down who turned the werewolf into a werewolf in the first place, and he has to defeat the witch, because that's part of the lore too, is like a witch turns their enemy into a werewolf, the werewolf kills all of his family, and he's left with the tragic consequences. Or we could have a thing where he kills the final person that he loved the most, and now he's alone in the world, but he's cured of werewolfism because the curse lifts.
That's what happened in Van Helsing. He kills the woman he loves right as he gets cured, and it's like a really hard like twist of fate. Like, you are now normal again, but you killed her, so now you're gonna live with that.
Well, yeah. Like, you could do the antidote thing where he kills her in the last second, but I meant like the actual curse, where if you kill everybody that you love and you have nothing left in the world, the curse lifts.
I didn't mean like I'm just talking about that whole thing where he killed her as a werewolf. Like, you kill the one you love as a werewolf, and then now you get to watch. As you're cured of your disease for having done the thing that cures you, you're sitting there wallowing in your
yeah. So there's a lot of ways to end it. Like, werewolves are a very interesting monster to begin with.
The lore is also all over the place and inconsistent, so you can do some really fun things with it.
There's a lot of stuff that you can do
vampires, where it's like regionally based. You can do some fun things.
Yeah, like that's part of the reason where it's just like the Wolfman specifically. I don't know what I would do with the Wolfman specifically. I have thousands of ideas on what I would do with like a werewolf story, though. I love werewolves; they're my favorite.
Fair enough.
All right. Anyway, that was The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, and the iconic of 1941's The Wolfman, as we continue watching all of the classic Universal monster films. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you liked this video, please let us know by dropping a like and letting us know your thoughts in the comments below. We are always appreciative of all your feedback. So whether it's a comment regarding the Wolfman specifically, this review, or the channel in general, we appreciate any comments that you give us. If you like this stuff, be sure to subscribe as we do a new Universal Monster every month. We talk about bad films and rewrite them, and we talk about entertainment topics in general every Wednesday. Otherwise, we go to a movie every single week on Saturday, so there's a lot of stuff. We do a lot of stuff. So subscribe if movies interest you as they interest us. Otherwise, we will see you guys in the next video.